Would you like to learn how to make classic shepherd's pie, the ultimate comfort food? Stay tuned to the next episode of Hilltop Stovetop. Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we're teaching you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. Today we're doing shepherd's pie. Now this shepherd's pie is a request from one of my subscribers. So like I've said before, if you're subscribed and you have there's something that you want to learn, just put something in the comments, and if I know how to do it, I'll help you out. So we're going to start off with getting my little cooker going here. And we're going to start with, I've got some onion here, and I'm going to start frying that up while we talk about shepherd's pie. Now shepherd's pie, as the name would indicate, is something that was traditionally made by shepherds. And so really, you're supposed to be making it with lamb, and it's pretty basic. It's lamb and it's potatoes. That's what a shepherd would have available to eat. Now, for most of us in North America, we're more likely to be making it with ground beef. I'm actually going to be adding a little bit of ground pork, but that's only because I have some leftover ground pork from another recipe that I want to use up. So we've got ground beef. I've got quite a big package of beef here. I'm not going to use it all. I just know that I need to have enough to make this pan. And so I've got my onions going. If I had a big enough frying pan or a big enough cooker, I'll say, I could be doing this all in the same pan. For purposes of this filming, I'm going to be doing it in a little bit of stages here. So we'll start by frying up our onions. We're going to have our ground beef, the ground pork, and then just something that's going to give us a little bit of a gravy. So I've got some bouillon that I'm going to be adding, and that's about it. So we're going to fast forward while these onions cook. We'll do a little bit of cooking the beef, and then we'll put it all together at the end. See you in a few minutes. All right, so we've got our first batch of beef pretty much cooked up here. And remember, we're trying to get enough volume to fill up that pan. So I've got my onions in this bowl here, and I'm going to add in that bit of beef, and then we're going to fry up. I've got this little bit of leftover ground pork. I'm going to pop that in and brown that up, and I'm going to add a little bit more beef, and not to worry, I've thawed out this big chunk of hamburger or ground beef, and later on I will be using the rest of it to make up some hamburger patties to throw on the barbecue. So while that is going on, I've got our vegetables going. So again, vegetables for this are totally optional, whatever you happen to have in the freezer. I personally like corn, so I've got a couple of canned corn, one that's creamed corn, so that's going to add to the liquid here, and one that's kernel corn. Frozen corn is great for this. That's kind of the bare minimum for shepherd's pie as far as I'm concerned. And I've also got some carrots that I've chopped into very small pieces, about the same size as the kernels of corn, and I'm just cooking those partially to go into this. And again, we'll see you in a few minutes when this is browned up, and then we're ready to start putting it all together. All right, so we've got all the meat cooked up here. Put that all together. And then we'll move this into a spot where I can manage it here. Okay, so we've got the meat and the onions. The next thing is the vegetables. So I've got carrots here partially cooked, and there's a little bit of liquid in with that. And that's a good thing, because ultimately we want to end up with kind of a gravy sort of thing, which is why using creamed corn is a nice touch. That adds a nice creaminess to it, quite literally. And peas would also be a good addition. I would only use frozen peas, though. I like something that's got that bright color to it. And then we're going to add in the kernel corn, and there's not much liquid in canned corn, in the kernel corn, but I'll include that. And then I'm going to add some bouillon. So this is the Knorr brand. Sometimes I use and I'm going to give that 2 or 3 good squirts. And our old friend Worcestershire sauce here. Always good with beef. And then we're going to give that a good stir up together. And you can tell already that it has that gravy kind of a texture or consistency. It's nice and moist, not too dried out. You don't want anything dried out. Now, because we've cooked all of the meat, we can taste it. If it was raw meat, we couldn't do that. But I am going to give it a little taste right now, make sure we've got the seasonings right. I'm going to put a little bit of pepper in there. With that bouillon, there's enough salt, but a little half a teaspoon of pepper won't go amiss here. And then I've got my pan ready to go here. I've greased it thoroughly so that we don't end up with too much stuck to the bottom. Spread that out well. So like I said, you can use any kind of vegetables you want, but I suggest things that are relatively small because you've got, like the ground beef is a fine texture, and you don't want just a clump of vegetable in with it. And then the next stage is our mashed potatoes. So that's what makes it truly a shepherd's pie. So I've got these that I had done up ahead of time. I think I need a spoon for this, not a fork. Now, if I was really fancy, I would have taken these potatoes and put them in a piping bag, and then I could have made a beautiful pattern on the top of this. But that's getting a little bit carried away, I think. Matter of fact, I gave away all of my piping bags. I don't do that kind of stuff anymore. You have to have strong hands to be able to handle that kind of stuff. So that was 4 cups of mashed potatoes. And then all I'm going to do is just take the back of the spoon and smooth it all out. Now, if you want, you can kind of do a little bit of a pattern with the back of the spoon. And this is also, at this point, if you wanted to make it ahead of time, like say you could make it the night before and then just have it ready to go into the oven the next morning, this is a good place to stop. The only thing is, if you do that, you've got it sitting in the fridge overnight, remember to allow a little bit of extra cooking time because you need to bring it up to heat first. And then the last thing we're going to do before we put this in the oven is a little bit of butter. So I've got about maybe 1/3 cup of butter here, and I'm just going to drizzle that over the top. And that will soak into the potatoes, but it will also help it with nice brown. Maybe could have got away with 1/4 cup, but always a little bit extra is good. Okay, so now I'm going to pop this into the oven, 350 degrees, about 25 minutes until it starts to brown, and we'll see you then. That was 25 minutes at 350 degrees, and then I did another 5 minutes on broil just to brown up the top a little. And the other thing that I did after the cameras were shut off is, while this side I had smoothed out with a spoon, this side I just took a fork and did a little kind of a cross hatch to make a little bit of a pattern. Nothing too fancy, but you can tell how the butter is made that nice and brown. And I'm going to let it sit for about 5 minutes just to let it reabsorb some juices, and then we'll cut into this and you'll be amazed. See you in a minute. All right, so we're about 5 minutes in. It's had a chance for the juices to settle back in. So let's see how this turned out. And a little bit of gravy in the bottom here. So there you have it, folks. Classic shepherd's pie. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of Hilltop Stovetop, and that you'll remember to like and subscribe. And don't forget to share with your friends, because the more people watching, the more videos I can make. So we'll see you again soon in our next episode, where I think we're going to be making hamburgers to go on the barbecue, because it's getting to be summertime now. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.